Good morning, good morning, good morning, beautiful creatures of the internet. I am Mango Jones. The thing that is up on my screen, I will get to in just one moment. As always, in my description, there are links to LGBTQIA plus resource hubs for those individuals and their families. And there are also links to reproductive rights resources for all of the he, she's, theys, and thems with and without uteruses. Awesome. Okay, so this post right here. See it? Yeah. Security Monitor Lizard and I are teaming up to raise money for Ukraine. The goal is $1,000. We have multiple charities that we are going to be letting people, pick between. What you're going to do is you're going to go to the list, you're going to pick out a charity, you're going to donate to said charity using the direct donation link that is provided. There is a direct donation link provided. I will be pulling that up in just 1 second so you can see what that looks like. You are going to screenshot your receipt, block out all of the, personal identifiers, things like that, just so we know that it's you. Like, you can use your, online handle so we know the monetary amount, the charity that you chose. You're going to email it to Lizard's email, postalaguana@gmail.com, with the subject line Ukraine charity, and then please vote for the disgusting thing that we're unfortunately going to eat once we reach that goal. And it's going to be up for 30 days, so there's plenty of time. Please don't rush. For every $100 over, we are going to make and eat a beer egg as well. And Lizard and I have both pledged to donate 10% of all proceeds. So yes, we're going to match 10%. So if we hit that $1,000 and it's just $1,000, we are both going to donate 100. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Tonight we are going to be looking at all of the charities that are on the list over on his channel. We are also going to look at all of these food options over on his channel. When you open up that Google Doc, because I am very meticulous about things, this is what you will see. You have the name of each of the 5 charities. You have the tax ID, the direct donation link. You have links to what they're doing in Ukraine and how the money is spent. And you also have the charity navigator breakdown. All of the things on this list, all of the charities, except for one, have a 100% transparency rating and accountability rating. So Miss Parker has vetted it all. I did my due diligence. Miss Parker double checked my due diligence. This is all on the up and up. No worries. None of the money is going directly to myself or Lizard. It's all going directly to the charities. Use those direct donation links. And also, please come check out the stream tonight where we will be discussing everything. Lizard's channel is going in the chat. Go subscribe over there. Come watch us go over these. Learn about the charities. Learn about the entire thing. It's going to be fun. It's going to be terrible for me and Lizard. I don't know why I agreed to this. But, Ukraine, they need the help. I'm sure my stomach will survive a little. Let me say good morning to everyone that is here. And then we will jump into the terribleness that is the troubled teen industry. Good morning, Two Guns. Lovely to see you. Yes, I know, Milk. You have to go to work. You're going to miss the terribleness. So sad. Morning, Skits Crasher. If you are lurking, then good morning. If you're watching this later, hello. I am between meetings, so I'm a little everywhere. But it's all right. It's all good. And of course, as always, I have a slideshow. Because that's how I do things. Okay, so this morning we're talking about the troubled teen industry. Those of you that have followed my channel for a bit, y'all know that I covered the Aspen Education Group. So, good morning, Ami. I'm sorry. Consult your caseworker. That is why you have one, because you need to be able to be open and honest with them about where your mental health is at, so that way they can provide you the proper services. Please don't think I'm in any way trying to brush you off. It's just, yeah, when you have a caseworker like that, use them, utilize them. It's super important that you do. Okay. Also, take your vitamin D, because I know that affects your mental health too. Okay. Don't make me get all like mom voice on you, because I will. All right. Also, if your mental health is getting worse, I highly recommend not watching this one. I do. You literally didn't. Yes, that's what caseworkers are for. They help you with the paperwork. They help you find the services that you need. They help you find the doctors and psychiatrists and everyone that you're like. That's what they're for. Utilize them. Go to them with your problem. Tell them what it is, and they'll help you. Like, yeah, that's what they're for. Use it. Great resource. I have a caseworker. She's cool. My son has a caseworker. He's pretty awesome. Yeah. That's what they're there for. Utilize it. Okay. So I'm going to go into a little bit of back history with a couple of different groups. This back history is actually relevant to what we're going to be discussing. All right. We are also going to look at 5 members of the troubled teen industry, one of which is actually currently open, like right now. Like, you can enroll your kid in it, like right fucking now. It's not good. Morning, Bill. All right. So let's get into it and talk about this gentleman right here. In the mid 1950s, this man, Charles Diedrich Sr., he's a reformed alcoholic, cult leader, member of Alcoholics Anonymous. He decided to take LSD, and while on LSD, decided to start his own therapeutic program designed to fit the needs of those suffering from illegal drug addictions. Because at the time, AA, because, it's mid 1950s, didn't really appreciate having members that were, on illegal drugs. So he decided to create a program. He formed a small group. It's called Tender Loving Care, where he supposedly coined the phrase, "Today is the first day of the rest of your life." I say supposedly because there is no proof of this. I looked. There's no proof. Several members have said so, but I digress. Once Charles gained a significant following in his Tender Loving Care group, he incorporated it and created the Synanon Foundation in 1958. It was initially supposed to be a 2-year residential program, but Charles quickly decided that residents could never graduate from the program, as full recovery was impossible. So he created this program that was supposed to be 2 years long, called Synanon, where people could come in and get help for their illegal drug addictions. But then he was like, you know what? No, full recovery is impossible. Y'all are just going to stay here forever. Can't graduate. Nothing's going to, you'll be fine. Now, Synanon also developed a business that sold promotional items. And for a time, they roughly generated $10 million per year in revenue. So, they sold instructions on how to play the Synanon game, which we'll get to. They sold records. There were flags, books, all sorts of things. Yeah. Now, by the early 1960s, they became centered on truth-telling sessions, and they called them the Synanon games. And these were a form of attack therapy, which is a highly confrontational interaction between a patient and fellow patients during group therapy. And so, a patient may be verbally assaulted, denounced, humiliated by the therapist, other members of the group. Like, it's a highly toxic environment that disguises itself as therapy. And that's what they did. That's what they prided themselves on. Also, that is what the Synanon building looked like. Outside of the attack therapy, Synanon members aim to cure each other by breaking each other using isolation, humiliation, hard labor, and sleep deprivation. These are common themes here. Y'all remember the Aspen thing? Common themes. By the time that Synanon shut down in 1991, their model had already been widely copied by other organizations, one of which we're about to talk about. Now, any questions, comments, concerns before I go into the seed? Morning, Mickey. Morning, Mary. Welcome back, Two Guns. Okay, so in 1971, the federal government gave a grant to a Florida organization called The Seed, that's their logo, which applied Synanon's method to teenagers. And they not only did it to teenagers that were on drugs, but they did it to teenagers that were just suspected of using drugs or trying drugs. At the height in the 1970s, the Seed had locations in Fort Lauderdale, Fort Myers, Dade County, St. Petersburg, all in Florida, and one location in Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah, just one random location in Cleveland. The program marketed itself as spectacularly successful, and they taught love, and they received like a wide amount of press coverage so that people would think, oh, okay, this is a good place to send my teenager who is having troubles. Like, this is an actual news article from Fort Worth from 1974 about the Seed. And this news report came out before next thing I'm about to talk about, because in 1974, a U.S. Senate report actually compared the techniques of the Seed to North Korean brainwashing techniques used on prisoners of war during the Korean War. Yeah. And actually, if anyone would like to read that full report from 1974, it's going in the chat right now. Like, just for clarification, that is very much a real thing. That's the full report in the chat. Following the release of this Senate report, along with criticisms from experts about techniques and the high suicide rates of the attendees, the Seed declined over the next 2 decades. And by 2001, the only location left was in Fort Lauderdale, which subsequently dissolved. Other similar drug rehabilitation programs and residential treatment programs were founded in the Seed's image during that decline, which was essentially the start of the troubled teen industry. So, like I said, super important. Like, Synanon's methods of doing things, the Seed, everything like that was the start of this wide industry that still is going on to this day. This big, widely marketed thing. It's ridiculous. Okay, so questions, comments, concerns before I go into more stuff, because it's all downhill from here, folks. It really is. It's not pretty. It's not fun. Be surprised, Fruit. I'm just trying to avoid trigger words as I'm trying to sleep. I wish you well. I wish you luck. Hopefully none of the words that I use are trigger words, because there's a lot of stuff here. Okay, so the Troubled Teen Industry, or TTI, is a network of behavior modification programs that generally disguise themselves as therapeutic boarding schools, residential treatment programs, wilderness programs, drug rehabilitation centers, and religious schools. The vast majority of TTI programs fall under the umbrella of therapeutic boarding schools, and those are residential schools offering therapy for students with behavioral issues as well as offering academics. So, the behavior modification programs, they generally are also therapeutic boarding schools. Same with the residential treatment. Wilderness programs, not so much because wilderness program, but you get the general idea. Most schools that are TTI programs can be registered through NatSap, which is for boarding schools, but we'll get to that in a moment. Behavior modification programs are residential education and treatment institutions enrolling adolescents who are perceived to be displaying antisocial behavior in an attempt to alter their conduct. Usually they use like a modified version of ABA therapy, applied behavior analysis. I am not a fan of ABA therapy for most people. However, comma space, it really is up to your personal therapist or your child's personal therapist as to whether or not that'll help you. Don't send your kids to unlicensed people like most parents do with the TTI industry. Residential treatment facilities are usually for milder, like, psychopathology things, like eating disorders and disciplinary issues. These programs often overlap with religious academies and can include weight loss camps, boot camps, conversion therapy, and residential schools for indigenous populations throughout the US and Canada. So those indigenous schools that you hear about where people have found the mass grave sites, most of them would qualify as TTI. Wilderness programs are also known as outdoor behavioral health care, and those are out-of-home adolescent treatment for behavioral, substance, and mental health issues. But like the vast majority of wilderness therapy programs, like teens spend most of their time living in tents in the woods with like 8 to 12 other teenagers. They're accompanied by at most 3 staff members that are not trained as therapists and work for minimum wage, who are responsible for the day-to-day activities. About half of wilderness therapy participants attend involuntarily and are transported by services that like specialize in uncooperative youth. So they kidnap you in the middle of the night and just take you out to the woods with all of these other teenagers and underqualified and underpaid adults. Mind you, wilderness therapy programs should not be confused with outdoor education programs. Outdoor education programs are usually federally funded and include things like the Boy Scouts of America, National Outdoor Leadership School, or Outward Bound, where they actually do something and teach things and are accredited. Just say. Previously, like I said, we learned about the absolute horrors of the Aspen Education Group, and they're just one piece of the entire troubled teen industry as a whole. They are still supported and perpetuated by Dr. Phil, fuck him. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a closer look at NatSap because, again, the vast majority of these programs fall under the therapeutic boarding school umbrella, which means that they are part of NatSap. So it's important that we look at these and we understand what NatSap is, what their qualifications are and aren't, and we'll go from there. We're also going to look at 5 other members of the TTI industry, 4 of which are closed. 2 closed as recently as 2020 and 2021. 1 is still open. Yeah. Please keep in mind, due to irregular licensing rules across the country and in different states, as well as ambiguity regarding the labels that facilities use themselves, it's hard to gauge how widespread these facilities are and how many of them are out there. If you're a parent of a teenager, do your research thoroughly before you send your child somewhere. If a place talks about therapeutic practices, please absolutely make sure that they're licensed. Make sure that they are accredited. Make sure that they have all of their ducks in a row before you shell out hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in the hopes of fixing your child. Consult a psychiatrist. Speak to someone that's professional. Like, I know that it's really hard when you're at your wit's end and you're like, this is my last fucking hope. But talk to actual professionals, please. People fucking die at these things. They do. Okay. So, as I said in the Aspen stream, the vast majority of these schools are a part of the National Association of Therapeutic Schools and Programs, or NATSAP. NATSAP is a trade organization of therapeutics, resident programs, wilderness programs, and home-based programs for adolescents and young adults with behavioral issues. Don't trust NATSAP. In January 1999, NATSAP was formed by 6 founders of programs within the troubled teen industry. This is Hidden Lake Academy, and its founder, Len Buccellato. Len were some of the first founders. Michael Allgood of the Cascade School, and this is a overhead of the Cascade campus because Cascade's been closed for a while, and it's really hard to find like pictures of it. Jeannie Courtney, this woman right here, of the Spring Ridge Academy. Spring Ridge Academy is one of the ones that we are going to look at. Spring Ridge is still open. Yeah. This wonderful man, Tim Brace of the Aspen Youth Services. Aspen Youth Services has been shut down. It's not to be confused with Aspen Education Group as a whole. Rosemary Tippett of Three Springs. Three Springs closed down because of a lot of issues, primarily the fact that they did not do any sort of actual therapeutic services to help their students. And one of them escaped and killed someone. Just say it. Research, people. Do it before you send your kids somewhere. And then there's Bobby Christensen of Crater Lake School. Bobby Christensen should have never been allowed to open Crater Lake. And she also shouldn't have helped form NATSAP either, because there was an incident in 1991 at another therapeutic school that she operated in which 3 teens and 4 rescuers died in a Sierra Nevada lake. Oh, hey, look. There's part of the news article on that. She had a legal settlement saying that she would never operate a similar facility again. But then she opened Crater Lake and helped form NATSAP. There's a sordid history here with the entire industry. Like, no, don't. But I digress. Oh, morning, Lizard. Once again, everyone, please go check out Lizard's stream tonight, because I will be there and we will be going over all of the charities that I pointed out earlier for our fundraiser, because we hate ourselves, apparently. Okay, so all but one of these programs, like I said, Spring Ridge Academy, still open, but all of the others have shut down in the ensuing years for a variety of reasons, including child abuse, neglect, licensing violations, and successful class action lawsuits. So there's that. Any questions, comments, concerns before we move along? Because it's about to still be all downhill from here. It's not fun. Also, if anyone has any questions that I do not have the answer to from my research, and I will gladly look it up right here, right now. Okay. So, NatSap is not, it's absolutely not an accrediting or licensing body. Previously, in order to be a member of NatSap, schools and programs were required to be in full compliance with NatSap's published ethical principles and their principles of good practice, which is there. And for anyone that wants to take a look at that themselves, it is also going into the side chat. So they had to follow these guidelines, these principles. But in 2007, the NatSap director at the time, Jan Moss, stated in a United States House Committee on Education and Labor hearing that the organization had no process for checking up on compliance, nor correcting any programs that stray away from the published guidelines, essentially leaving all of the programs to do as they would until local government or law enforcement agencies stepped in. Yeah. So they're not accredited, don't have any oversight. They just sort of exist to do whatever. And parents willingly sent their kids there and paid thousands. Yeah. So this is from NatSap's actual website. And they admitted directly on their website themselves that their programs in no way at all required licensed therapists or treatment programs. They also did not require any sort of licensing or accreditation. They only just decided in 2020 that all of their programs needed to be accredited and licensed by 2023. So that still left a nice 3-year gap where unlicensed therapeutic practices could be held and where years of abuse and neglect could be ignored further, I guess is the best way to put it. So yeah, this is what they did. This is what they continue to do, actually, because they still have a full year before everyone's required to be accredited. Now, currently, I will say that most of NatSap schools do have their educational programs accredited, so good for you. But it still does not excuse the lack of therapeutic licensing. So NatSap also publishes a professional journal called the Journal of Therapeutic Schools and Programs, and they conduct conferences and workshops. They publish studies of their own programs, much like Aspen's marketing studies that they use. Don't trust journals that are self-published like this on programs that are run by them. Never do that. It's not wise. There's nothing there of substance. There's just dick sucking, essentially. Don't do it. It's not good. So, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, advises that mental health programs and providers be accredited by multiple organizations, multiple nonprofit accrediting organizations, such as the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Healthcare Organizations, or JACO, the Council on Accreditation, COA, and the Commission on Accreditation of Rehabilitation Facilities, or CARF. But to date, as of when I did this research just last week and this week, none of NatSap's programs are accredited by any of these organizations or organizations like these. That's an issue. So, in 2007, the U.S. Government Accountability Office reported on negligence at residential treatment programs, including wilderness therapy, boot camps, and various academies. And I have a link to that is also going in chat for those that would like to take a look at it. From that report, during 2005 alone, 33 states reported 1,619 staff members involved in incidents of abuse in residential programs. GOA could not identify a more concrete number of allegations because it could not locate a single website, federal agency, or other entity that collects comprehensive nationwide data. That's fucking terrifying. 33 states, 1,619 staff members. Mind you, these staff members are not licensed in any way. They are not trained in any way to actually work with troubled teens. All of them involved in incidences of abuse. In 1 year. Just one. One single fucking year. Also from this report, GAO reviewed thousands of allegations of abuse, some of which involved death at residential treatment programs across the country and in American-owned and American-operated facilities abroad between the years 1990 and 2007. Allegations included reports of abuse and death recorded by state agencies and the Department of Health and Human Services. Allegations detailed impending civil and criminal trials with hundreds of plaintiffs and claims of abuse and death that were posted on the internet. GAO did not attempt to evaluate the benefits of residential treatment programs because they can't. They cannot evaluate the benefits when you look at how many allegations there are, especially over the course of 1 fucking year. I mean, this is a full government report. But these organizations were still allowed and are still allowed to be opened and operated. They're allowed to bring in millions of dollars a year in profits, pure profit. If anyone has any questions, please post them in the chat. I will gladly answer what I can. From late 2007 to 2008, a coalition of medical and psychological organizations that included members of the Alliance for the Safe, Therapeutic, and Appropriate Use of Residential Treatment, or ASTART, and the Community Alliance for the Ethical Treatment of Youth, SAFETY, provided testimony and support that led to the creation of the Stop Child Abuse in Residential Programs for Teens Act of 2008 by the United States Congress Committee on Education and Labor. In 2009, the Bazelon Center for Mental Health Law, which is a legal advocacy organization representing people with mental disabilities in the U.S., questioned the appropriateness and efficiency of group placements, citing failure of some programs to address problems in the child's home and community environment, lack of mental health services, and substandard education practices and programs. Concerns specifically related to private therapeutic boarding schools include inappropriate discipline techniques, medical neglect, restricted communication, such as lack of access to child protective services and advocacy hotlines, and a lack of monitoring and regulation. Yeah. So with all of this in mind, because it's a fucking lot, I know. We're going to take a look at 5 members that are confirmed part of the troubled teen industry. Yeah. Okay, so Hidden Lake Academy was one of the founding programs for NATSAP. The school was founded in 1994 by Dr. Leonard Bucceletto. I do believe it, but I probably butchered that. In Georgia, and it was intended to fill the need for a specialty school to fill the gap between services of residential treatment centers and traditional boarding schools. No. The educational aspect of Hidden Lake was actually accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, the Southern Association of Independent Schools, and the Georgia Accreditation Commission. So the educational aspect of this school, great. They were accredited. They were up to par on that. But the therapy was not. The therapeutic aspects were not licensed. They were not accredited. They did not have the proper people working with these students. New students typically struggled with homework, depression, anger management, or various addictions. Books were screened. Students were not allowed to possess any literature containing sex or drug references and pictures. Magazines, newspapers, and journals were also screened, and any inappropriate articles were cut out to allow the student to have reading material without negative influences. Incoming and outgoing mail were not really screened by staff, but some letters were not permitted if they were from friends. The school also did not always let students know when they received letters. So they could have letters sitting around the office and no one would tell you. You also couldn't call people. So peer groups were the school's main method of therapy. And they started with about 10 students to one counselor. And students arrived all throughout the school year and were expected to stay for 18 months. On September 11th, 2006, a federal class action lawsuit was filed against Hidden Lake. The plaintiffs charged that Hidden Lake Academy employed a number of uncertified teachers and unqualified counseling staff, did not employ at times any licensed learning disability specialist or a registered or properly licensed nurse. They allowed unlicensed staff, such as secretaries, to dispense to students prescription medications. They enrolled a number of court-ordered, violent, and severely disturbed children, and overbilled families for a number of items and incidental charges, among other things. They allowed students that needed actual therapists, that needed actual licensed help to enroll in this school and just exist without getting the help that they need. And this right here is where Hidden Lake actually replied to the lawsuit, requesting that it be dismissed by the court, and filed a counterclaim claiming that the plaintiffs should be obligated to reimburse the school for losses incurred by its involvement in the lawsuit. A hearing to determine if the case qualifies as a class action lawsuit was held on January 31st, 2007, and on August 15th, 2007, a federal judge ruled against the plaintiffs by denying the petition for class action without prejudice. It was they appealed, and it was revisited in 2008 by another judge who found that the prerequisites for a class action were met and certified the class for settlement purposes. Not too long after this happened, Hidden Lake applied for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which resulted in the school closing down and then reopening as Creekside Wilderness Academy. It officially closed permanently in 2011. But yes, they did have to pay out. They are closed. But they're just one program among many. I mean, currently in NatSAP's register, there are at least 140 schools that registered themselves as therapeutic boarding schools. That does not include schools that registered themselves as wilderness programs, residential treatment centers, religious schools. Because while everyone falls under the umbrella, not everyone registers in the same way, and not everyone gets licensed in the same way. So there's still a lot to it. Hello, Chris Durham. We're talking about sad things today. Like the Catherine Freer Wilderness Program, which was marketed to families of teens suffering from a variety of issues, including low self-esteem, teens that were rebellious, teens that were angry or defiant, failing in school, not attending school, suspended or expelled, depressed or emotionally troubled, had a history of running away, choosing the wrong friends, bright but not achieving, and suffering from ADHD. Now, one of the things that Catherine Freer's website at the time claimed was that they had experience working with youth on psychotropic medications. So if your teen was suffering from certain issues and had to be medicated for them, they claimed that, oh, we have experience with kids like this. We are safe to leave your child with. They were not. They were decidedly not. There was no formal education aspect to the Catherine Freer program, so all aspects of the program were fully unaccredited. They were unlicensed. They were everything. This program should not have been allowed to run as long as it did, but I digress. In 2002, a young woman named Erica died. She died of heat stroke and dehydration the day after she arrived to the program while on a hike. According to eyewitness accounts, Erica was acting oddly. She was talking gibberish, her eyes rolled back in her head, and she fell off the trail into a ravine, and she didn't get up. She had no pulse. At first, the staff thought that she was faking, and then they began CPR. It was 45 minutes before someone called for a helicopter, and it took hours for help to arrive. The staff was confused, giving the wrong coordinates to a search and rescue team, and as it turned out, the staff also did not have experience dealing with kids on psychotropic drugs like Erica was. Yes, it very much is a case of more people making money from other people's pain. And in this case, it cost Erica's life because they were untrained, unexperienced, unlicensed, and they allowed her to die. They did. An unnamed 14-year-old boy died at the same camp in 2003 after a tree fell on the tent that he was sleeping in. Because again, at these wilderness programs, you have anywhere between 8 to 12 teenagers just wandering through fucking woods with unlicensed teachers that are paid minimum wage that don't know what the fuck they're doing. But they're allowed to run. They're allowed to operate. There's still plenty of them that are operating. This is Circle of Hope Girls Ranch. It opened in July 2006, and it is a religious-based camp that stated that their purpose was to use the Bible to teach young women that they are to obey their parents and the authority over them. Residents spent much of their day doing manual labor, such as working outside and cleaning the house. Their clothes were allowed to be changed twice a week. Educational material consisted of packets from the homeschool provider Accelerated Christian Education. And the educational aspect of the program often did not count towards credits in other school districts. So once again, unaccredited school program, just a ranch people could send their kids to. It's the fucking ranch. The program permitted 15-minute calls and letters with parents. However, former residents stated that communication was heavily censored. Before the school's closure, parents, former students, and staff filed multiple reports to state authorities, but to no avail. Federal prosecutors refused to file charges after a 2018 report by the Missouri State Highway Patrol regarding child abuse at the ranch, and prosecutors in Missouri also refused to file charges after another report the year before. Former students have alleged that Missouri's Department of Social Services largely ignored their reports regarding the ranch. Starting in 2020, just 2 years ago, 2020, the ranch started to gain wider media attention due to former residents using social media to talk about their experiences at the ranch. Among those who spoke out against the ranch is Amanda Householder, the daughter of the owners. She subsequently went viral on TikTok for sharing her experiences and other people's experiences while attending the ranch. Investigations were also launched by the Kansas City Star and the City County Republican, both local newspapers in Missouri. At least 24 students were removed by local Child Protective Services in August 2020 as part of an investigation involving several state agencies, including the Cedar County Sheriff's Department. In September 2020, Boyd Householder, the owner of the ranch, stated to the Kansas City Star that the ranch was closed for good, and they also stated that he and his wife Stephanie were going to try and vindicate themselves. The properties that were part of the ranch were put up for sale within the same month. Yeah, this was just 2 years ago. This ranch, this Christian ranch, was running 2 years ago. Multiple lawsuits were filed against the ranch in September 2020 after the ranch had finally been shut down by former residents. These residents alleged, among other things, that they had been raped, molested, denied food and water, handcuffed, chained, and forced to stand in front of a wall for hours on end. In July 2021, 4 of these lawsuits were settled. The amounts that the plaintiffs settled for are reportedly confidential, which is understandable. In March 2022, Amanda herself sued her parents, along with other parties, alleging that her parents made her perform forced labor, beat her, and forced her to punish other students. These aren't just practices that went unnoticed years ago. This is recent. This is current. This industry is very much still alive. It's still very much bringing in millions of dollars a year. Hey, Midwest. Nice to see you. It's understandable. I highly recommend going back to the beginning because there's a lot of information there. But thank you for being here. I appreciate it. But yeah. And they're still going. The Agape Boarding School for Boys is another one that's still going, actually. It is a Christian boarding school that they claim to turn around rebellious boys. We're a year-round affordable boarding school specifically designed for boys struggling with academics or behavior. If your son is out of control, expelled, or falling behind in school, we will help get him back on track. Unlike typical boarding schools and military schools, we only work with boys who are struggling, so we strictly maintain discipline and security while showing Christian love and care for the boys at all times. Agape teaches and reinforces proper behavior, responsibility, and strong goals in life, turning uncaring, self-centered boys into responsible and mature young men. That's what Agape says they do. And they do have the academic accreditations for the boys in the program to receive their high school diplomas. They're good on that front. those are their three main goals right there: spiritual growth, behavioral growth, academic growth. But based on an investigation in 2021, just last year, just 1 year ago, Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt recommended prosecuting 22 employees with 65 counts on behalf of 36 victims, including felonies for abuse of a child and tampering with a victim, and misdemeanors for endangering the welfare of a child and failure to report child abuse. Yeah. Look at Christian school. Sounds like the same sick philosophy as the Quiverful movement subscribes to. It's close. It's very close. The only difference is, like with Agape, there is the educational accreditation aspect. Quiverful doesn't do that. They just learn at the dining room table. It's a whole thing. Afternoon, Joey. But yes, that's a current happening. That's currently going on. Also currently going on is the Spring Ridge Academy that's still open. It is a behavioral health residential facility for teenage girls aged 13 to 19 that is still running to this day. Now, base tuition of this school is $7,675 a month. $7,675 a fucking month. Keep that in mind. Okay? That's a pretty high fucking number. Now, the campus was originally a house with a barn attached and only had one student at the time. It is now capable of housing up to 75 girls with a facility that includes classrooms, medical areas, labs, and athletic fields and courts. Here is confirmation on the capacity of the residential facility, Spring Ridge Academy. Now, Spring Ridge Academy is currently owned and operated by Jeannie Courtney's son and daughter-in-law, Brandon and Suzanne Courtney. They claim to be a clinical therapeutic program with a college preparatory academic curriculum. However, there are no licensed therapists at this facility. Their education program is accredited. I will give them that. But no, they're not licensed for any sort of therapy. This right here is actually from their enrollment paperwork. This is legit in their enrollment paperwork. So the program that Spring Ridge does includes 4 phases that each student is expected to complete at their own pace, and the program's average length of stay is 14 to 18 months. 14 to 18 months. So it's $7,675 per month to be enrolled here. And you're looking at staying there for about 18 months, which means that they bring in, if they stay the maximum of 18 months, $138,150 per student. And they can house 76 students. Which means that they are bringing in, at full capacity for 18 months, $10,499,400 over the course of 18 months. 76 students. This is a multi-billion-dollar a year industry, you guys, that's allowed to run and operate and just exist as it is with little to no oversight. These places are insane. They are. So, yeah. Over $10 million a year. Yeah. Now, as girls progress in the phase system, they get certain privileges. Phase 1 is known as orientation, and the focuses are getting the girl to be compliant and submissive to the program's ideology. They just straight up tell you this. Phase 2 is consistency, and it has a large focus on showing consistency and following the Spring Ridge Academy rules. Phase 3 is integration, and it has a large family focus as the girls may now start attending visits at home. And phase 4 is transition and adds in friends and social media. Upon graduation from the SRA program, parents are advised to continue their child's education in another structured setting, usually another boarding school, private school, or college, depending on the child's education level at the time. Which, I mean, yes, continuing your education is important, especially when you go from one accredited education program to another accredited education program, however, space. I don't trust any place that tells me that they're going to integrate family back into my life. Kind of fucked up, in my opinion. I don't know. Spring Ridge Academy's program addresses 5 areas: emotional, relational, spiritual, intellectual, and physical. Spring Ridge works closely with the student's family. Parents are required to participate in family therapy with their daughter, attend occasional workshops, have monthly visits after an initial period of restricted access. And the initial period of restricted access is highly important because then SRA can gain control of the girls and scare them out of revealing abuses. Yeah, that's what they do. And yeah, they're allowed to have communication through letters and phone calls, but these letters and phone calls are monitored so that the kids cannot complain about treatment and abuse from the staff. Additionally, the Spring Ridge Academy handbook, the actual handbook for parents, the parents are preemptively instructed not to acknowledge their child's concern about any of the horrendous circumstances and events that she will undoubtedly describe. That's in the parent handbook. Oh, hey, by the way, your daughter is probably going to describe all of these awful things that we have done or are doing to her, but don't believe her because they're not real. She's just trying to get you to take her home. That's what they tell parents. I'm sorry, but I would never trust a school that had that in the handbook for me. If it ever told me that my child may describe horrendous acts and I am to not believe them, fuck that. No. That is a surefire way to make it to where your child will never talk to you or trust you ever fucking again. So, apart from that, in 2021, the parent of a former resident filed a lawsuit against Spring Ridge Academy alleging causes of action for negligence and fraud, among other things. The mother claims that the troubled teen program used non-evidence-based treatment practices on her daughter and misrepresented the tactics the program used before she enrolled her child there. In a workshop, for example, girls at Spring Ridge Academy were allegedly instructed to beat their chair with rolled-up towels containing their anger while other students screamed at them. Which is just an altered version of attack therapy, which is what Synanon did. Kind of amazing, isn't it? Spring Ridge Academy has also been accused of using conversion therapy. According to a former resident, students at Spring Ridge Academy who do not identify as females are given femininity assignments where they are forced to wear dresses and makeup and curl their hair as therapy. Yeah. People pay $138,000 for 18 months for conversion therapy. The trans teen reported that students were coerced to dress up as assigned characters during seminars, and he was made to wear a red lace dress and a ton of makeup and to curl his hair. The Arizona Department of Health Services has given Spring Ridge Academy 14 documented citations that include 2 administrative violations, 2 medication service violations, 2 emergency and safety standards violations, 1 opioid prescribing and treatment violation, 2 quality management violations, 1 admissions assessments violation, 2 environmental standards violations, and 2 behavioral health services violations. But Spring Ridge is still open, by the way, you guys. Spring Ridge Academy is very much allowed to remain open. Spring Ridge is the only member of the founders of NatSap that is still open. We already covered why Hidden Lake closed. Cascade School closed after multiple lawsuits alleging child abuse. Aspen Youth Services, I did an entire stream on Aspen, but the Aspen Youth Services division itself was closed down after multiple deaths. Three Springs was closed down after 1 death and multiple child abuse allegations. Crater Lake, once again, Bobby Christensen should have never been allowed to open Crater Lake, but Crater Lake was also closed due to child abuse and neglect, medical neglect. But these 5 places that we just talked about are just a small number. They are just a tiny piece of the puzzle. Aspen Education Group, which only has 6 campuses currently open, is a small, tiny little piece of the puzzle. The troubled teen industry as a whole is still very much alive and well, which is unfortunate because it's going unnoticed. It's one of those things that people just aren't doing anything about. And something should be done. Somehow I burned through 8 pages of notes and 41 slides in an hour. So, anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? Let's talk a bit. Morning, Vila. Nice to see you. Yep. And actually, one of the things that happened with the Circle of Hope Girls Ranch was that the owner also forced girls to eat their own vomit. It's actually a very common thing. I shouldn't sound so blasé about it, but it's true. Schools should not be allowed to open that are unaccredited and unlicensed. If you are running some sort of therapeutic program for children and teens, get licensed. Get licensed therapists. Do the right thing. Don't just bring in all of this money because you found a hole in the system. It's not cool. It's dangerous. It's incredibly incredibly fucking dangerous. Let's see. Hi, guys. Dead air. Sorry, trying to like not have too much dead air because I know I don't have background music. And someone likes to complain about that. So, oh, sorry, hit my mic. Okay, so as we know, there are a lot of different programs in Utah that deal with the troubled teen industry, a lot of which were Aspen owned groups, which we covered in the Aspen stream. But yeah, Utah is very, very well known for the deaths that happen within the troubled teen industry. Okay, Rav, something that you have to understand is when you look at the websites for these programs, they don't tell you that the therapists are unlicensed. They don't tell you the things about these programs. What you have, actually, that's not true. Most of them don't have more money than sense. Most of them don't have money. It's not that they're stupid enough, okay? A lot of these parents are at their absolute wits' end. A lot of these parents don't know how to approach mental health because they were not raised with mental health awareness. They were not taught what mental health awareness actually is. They do not know where to go from a certain point. You know those troubled teens that show up on like Dr. Phil, Maury, things like that. It's like those teens, but actually in your home, wreaking havoc on your mental health as well as their own mental health. And you don't know what to fucking do. So you're trying everything in your power to get them help. And these programs promise results. These programs tell you about the therapies that they offer. They tell you about the education that they offer. They tell you about all of these wonderful things. And so you think that you're doing the right thing by your child. You think that you are doing what is best. There are parents that have worked 3, 4, 5 jobs to be able to enroll their child in these programs, not knowing the tortures that actually happen. Parents call up places like Dr. Phil to get their teenage daughters sent to these programs because CBS, when Dr. Phil sends you there, covers the cost of the program, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Like, these parents think that they are doing what is best. They think that they are doing what is right. And then something happens and their child dies. Or their child is severely abused or neglected or having all of these issues. So not only is your child then damaged further or dead, but they have to live with that guilt of knowing that they thought they were doing what was best and they fucked up. It's not a pretty industry. It's not. Parents have filed multiple lawsuits on behalf of their children, and they didn't know. Granted, now it is easier to be able to look these places up and see the abuses and horrors that have happened. But at the height of the troubled teen industry, at the height of Aspen Education Group, that wasn't really an option. Because, Aspen used to have 44 locations. Yes, they absolutely are being exploited, Rav. They are. The people that open facilities for troubled teens, the people that start up these programs, see a way to make money without actually giving a shit about anything else. They are able to hire unexperienced, unlicensed people and just exist and abuse and neglect. So it isn't a matter of more money than sense. It isn't a matter of what kind of parents. It's a matter of what kind of program exploits people that are at wit's end. What type of program exploits people who need actual help. I mean, it's insanity. Joe, Rav, I don't think y'all were here when I went over this earlier, but there's a Government Accountability Office report that came out in 2007. And in that report, they said that during 2005, the year 2005 alone, 33 states reported 1,619 staff members involved in incidents of abuse in residential programs. That was just in 2005. And the thing is, that's not even a fully accurate number because there is not a single website, federal agency, or other entity that collects comprehensive nationwide data. That was in 2005. It's long been an issue, starting with the seed back in the 70s. And they're going to continue to exploit the vulnerable. They're going to continue to exploit the parents of children that are lost and confused. Morning, Slim. So I mentioned that Utah has a history of fucked up things when it comes to programs for troubled teens. 2 teens died in 1990 while enrolled in wilderness therapy programs in Utah. Both of their deaths were related to heat strokes on hikes. Aaron Bacon, age 16, died in 1994 while enrolled in a wilderness program in Utah. He was 3 weeks into a 63-day wilderness trek when he died of peritonitis. Yeah. It's inflammation of the inner lining of the abdomen and cover of the abdominal organs. And a perforated ulcer. Yeah. Like this dude needed help. And he was denied it. 3 weeks into a 63-day wilderness trek. Several staffers were charged with felony neglect and abuse of a disabled child. Yeah. If y'all are looking for material to read to learn more about this, please look up the book Help at Any Cost, How the Troubled Teen Industry Cons Parents and Hurts Kids. It is a terrible read. It's a very sad read. Many of the tactics that wilderness therapy programs use are no different than those used at Guantanamo Bay, and they do detail that greatly within the book. It's not pretty, the entire industry. Yes, they are opportunistic scumfucks. They are. And friendly reminder, Dr. Phil helps perpetuate this by sending girls to Aspen. Dr. Phil perpetuates it. Fuck Dr. Phil. Fuck opportunistic scumfucks. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a bunch of information on the troubled teen industry. I'm sorry that I started off everyone's Thursday morning with this terrible stuff. Tomorrow morning here on my channel, we are going to be finishing MAGA Hat Romance Volume 1, Ladies First, because we're going to need some sort of palate cleanse from this bullshittery, scumfuckery. I know that some people were probably expecting a longer stream, but there's only so much of this that I can personally take before I break down, and I have reached that limit. Yeah, tonight, catch me on Security Monitor Lizard's channel. We're going to be discussing the Ukraine fundraiser that we are teaming up to do. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for learning with me about these terrible things. Next week, we are doing 16 and Pregnant. So that one should be a bit better. Maybe. No, it's still pretty fucked. All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry this wasn't longer. I do believe that Drag is live right now. Maybe. Let's see. I don't want to just like end and y'all have nowhere to go. Yeah. Drag is very much live. So go over to him if y'all want to check out some Shanny stuff. His link is in the side chat. Later, Midwest, you'll probably see me lurking around Discord. I've got another meeting that I've got to go to in like 30 minutes. Ooh, I will be on the lookout for it. Everyone, check out Slim's channel. The link is in the description with the rest of the stream pervs. Vila Vendetta's link is also there. So, yes, do all that. Love you guys. Thank you for being here. I will catch y'all later.